Hello. How's it going? I hope you all slept well. How is everybody today? I'm putting all my bling on. I got my crystal bracelets on this morning. How did everybody sleep last night? Energies have been kind of interesting the last few days. Just mark on my mic real quick. Hello. Good morning. How's it going? How is everybody today? I'm just looking for my lighter so I can light my sage. What's left of it anyway, it's getting shorter. Hi, Sharice. Good morning. How is everyone? Happy Friday. Or as my little guy likes to say every Friday morning, TGIF. He never even watched TGIF, but he really loves Fridays because he knows he gets to veg out and relax over the weekend. Well, he thinks he's going to, but I'm not. I'm actually going to put him to work this weekend in the garden. There we go. Now it's burning properly. How is everybody? Good morning. You guys are also doing some gardening. That's wonderful to hear. You know what? I'm going to light some Palo Santo too, because why not? Sage for clearing the space, Palo Santo for lifting the space. I just prefer the smell of Palo Santo anyway. I don't know what it is about Palo Santo. I just love it. So, any questions this morning? Anybody have any weird dreams they want to talk about? Anything off this morning? The energies have been kind of weird the last couple days, so I'm curious how you guys are coping. In fact, I'm actually going to check. I wonder what the human and the other. Ooh, that was a good smudge. You see that? Yeah. Smudging the airwaves. Let's see. I always check the Schumann when the energies are a bit weird, because sometimes it helps to understand why the energies are weird. As you can see, the frequencies are still all over the show. Let's see if we've had any flares. Not really. No, it's pretty quiet when the cards to flares. So not too much going on with the flares today. If you guys are curious about what apps I use the Magnetic Storms app and the Schumann Resonance app. There's a bunch of different ones as well. Yes, we have been getting blasted with energy pretty steadily. Somebody just said, what's the most effective way to remove a skinwalker? Skinwalkers cannot be cleared. They're not normal people. You can't have a skinwalker attached to you. That's not a normal type of attachment. Skinwalkers are living, breathing beings of their own right. I realize that so are reptilians, but reptilians are using soul projection. It's slightly different. Reptilians are using body snatching through soul projection. Skinwalkers don't do that. In fact, one of the only clearings my mentor told me about, because he said that he almost always gets a yes from the higher self. I've only ever gotten 2 no's from the higher self, and they actually weren't no, they were later. They were like not yet. So as you guys are aware, every time we clear somebody, the higher self is taken into consideration. They tell us whether or not it's a good time to do the clearing, and not most of the time, thousands of times in a row, they will say, yeah, go ahead and do the clearing now. But there was one occasion where my mentor went to check on somebody. Somebody booked a clearing for an odd person in town. They said this person is very strange, keeps to themselves. I forget where they said he worked. I think he was a mechanic or something. I can't remember. Older guy. And they wanted to do a clearing on him to see if they could help him feel less weird, right? And then turns out that guy could not be cleared because he's a skinwalker. he was actually one of them. So yeah. There's a lot of we share this planet with a lot of beings that we consider to be mythological and not real, but they are very real. Wendigos, for example. I know somebody who has a Wendigo as a gatekeeper. Anybody know what a Wendigo is? Anybody ever heard of a Wendigo? Wendigos are a type of being. In fact, I can show you kind of a depiction of what they kind of look like. I'm sure some of you have heard of Wendigos. That's a Wendigo. Yeah. Native American lore talks about them quite a lot. They take different forms based on who you're talking to. They might depict different beings, so to speak, but for the most part, they kind of Jenny says Wendigo, nope. So Wendigos are considered like guardians of the forest. You fuck with the forest, you get the Wendigo. So they're one of those beings that you don't want to get on the bad side of. And a friend of mine, somebody I knew a long time ago, found out their gatekeeper was one when the old man that follows her around transformed into one to fight off a beastie. Just this old man followed her around as her gatekeeper. And then one day he transformed into something crazy. She's like, holy shit. And that's what he transformed into, was a Wendigo. So for the most part, it was a sweet old man, quiet, kept to himself, and then boom, when he needed to, he was able to assume his other form. So there are many beings out there that exist like this. This is one of the things that I wanted to explain, though, and thank you for bringing that up, kind of, because one of the most common misconceptions about reptilians is that they're shapeshifters. Reptilians are not shapeshifters, not in any way, shape, or form. No pun intended, but it's true. They're not shapeshifters. They cannot change their appearance physically. The only way they can change their form is from what they are expressing. They can show you what they want you to see. It's more like a glimmer. I guess some people use it as a glimmer. Some people call it glamoring, whatever you want to call it. It's when you change the appearance. It's like superimposing a filter over something. So that way you're changing the appearance of whatever it is that you're working on, connecting with. So they don't want you to see their true form. In fact, when I was wandering around the astral, I spent thousands of hours exploring the astral, just kind of wandering around, getting myself into trouble a little bit. This is a long while ago, a couple years ago. And I would go into, to be honest, like, I don't know what possessed me, why I would go into shady places. I think it was more out of curiosity. But I never saw reptilians. In fact, one of the reasons why you don't usually see reptilians is because they don't want you to see them. They change their appearance. So when I say reptilians are not shapeshifters, I mean, when people see a human and you start seeing that change, like I've seen somebody change. I've seen the scales kind of spread across their face and have been like, whoa, what is that? And then somebody else saw the same thing that I saw, so I knew I wasn't making it up. And this is before I really understood about reptilians, so I didn't know what I was seeing, which is why a lot of people also don't know what they're seeing. But for the most part, when you see a reptilian in the astral, they're going to depict themselves as something else. They're going to show themselves as a person or a demonic. Sometimes they love to show themselves as a galactic, as an angelic, as all kinds of things. So they are able to show you a false representation of themselves. They're not shape-shifting. They're not turning into an angelic. They can't even fake their own frequency. The only thing they can do is show you an illusion and bullshit you through that illusion. So no, they can body snatch people, but that even that takes a long time. And when they've body snatched people, sometimes they're self-aware and sometimes they are not. I have met body snatch people who are self-aware, and I have met people who are not self-aware. And what do you mean by that, Lara? Well, I'm saying I've talked to people who know that they are a reptilian in a human body, but they stole the body. It's one of the most awkward conversations of my entire life. Those of you who've been watching my podcast for 2 years, you remember the conversation. I'm not going to go into who it was and why I had that conversation. It was at an event, a Gaia event in Las Vegas 2 years ago. But my point in all of this is that there are a lot of beings that are depicted as shapeshifters that are actually not shapeshifters at all. Demonics are a form of shapeshifter. Why? Because they can depict themselves as anything they want. They are actually energy, and that energy can shapeshift and change form however they would like to depict themselves. So there are a lot of beings that are shapeshifters, and a lot of them that are more into illusioners. So exactly, Jessica said they're master illusionists. Exactly. I don't really like calling them masters of anything, but you get my point there. But yes, they are illusionists. The ones that are self-aware, who know that they are reptilian, they chose to keep their reptilian memories intact. They can choose when they body snatch whether or not they're going to keep their human memories or their reptilian memories. Some of them opt to remember their human side and are completely unaware of what they actually are. And other people are the opposite, where they're fully aware that they are reptilians in human bodies. And a lot of that happens through the elites, through the programming. There's a reason Kim Kardashian depicted herself as a white Draco. She wishes she was a white Draco. But this is why they have this sort of fascination with these specific types, is because they're trying to express to people that they're shapeshifters, but they're not. They're full of shit. They can't shapeshift at all. They can only show you something fake. So all these entities are in human form, or are they just energy? Everything is energy, technically. So if you want to get that specific about it, then everything is energy. Everything is source, and that includes the beasties. Katie says, I'm not scared of lizards anymore. Wonderful, Katie. That's the last thing you should be afraid of. Honestly, that's what they want. They want us to be afraid of them. Why? Because fear is food. Some people call it that louche energy, but it's what it really is pure concentrated fear. And that is their favorite food. So if you're not expressing fear, if you're telling them to F off and get out of your house, they're not going to stick around. They're going to go bother somebody else. One of the things that was really interesting, and I was going to wait until a few more people are watching, but I had a crazy experience yesterday. I shouldn't even say I had, because I tuned into a client that had a crazy experience. There's a lot of beings on this planet that this planet is a zoo. Just to put it into perspective, we are in a zoo. And the biggest problem with the zoo is the fact that you can't see like 99% of the animals, the creatures, the beings that exist on this planet. There are so many different types. Some of them are benevolent, some of them are quite nasty, and others are just kind of in that gray area where they're indifferent. They just want to be left alone. Gabrielle says, does louche look like black smoke? It can. It can, yeah. Sometimes that black smoke can actually look like, that could be a demonic. Demonics can depict themselves as black smoke. It looks like that, but it's not actual smoke. It's just that dark, concentrated, negative energy. So the problem with this planet being as there's just so many beings that exist here that we don't even know about yet. I've been working on the Beastie Manual a little bit, trying to learn about different beings. I'm kind of having fun with it, actually. I'm using it as kind of like a D&D perspective. And I plan on putting like a different rating system in there, like intelligence, like 4 out of 5 stars kind of thing. I would give reptilians a 2. 2 out of 5. But that's kind of what I'm going for, like maliciousness, intelligence, making a list of all the things and then kind of ranking it between 1 to 5 stars, depending on how, just how cunning they can be, how devious they are. Like, put a devious level. Reptilians would definitely be a 5. They're not as smart, but they're very devious. We'll give them that. the damage they can do, that sort of thing. So I'm still kind of working out a way to scale all this for the book, because I'm having fun. I must say, I am having fun learning about different races, learning about different galactics, for example. We learned about a race the other day. They don't have a name. There was a non-verbal child that got a clearing the other day. This child has been upset about some things, kind of feeling the energies of the space, and was, kind of trying to express that they're upset about something. So they booked a clearing, and turns out that this being chose to come here from like 12D. Like, we're talking one of the highest vibrational beings. They are light beings. In fact, they're a different form. They're not angelic, they said. And I was like, there's light beings, galactic light beings aren't angelic. They said, no, it has nothing to do with angelics. They're galactics that have ascended to light beings. And I was like, man, I'm having like Stargate flashbacks. Is this like the ancient ones? Like, like how does, I'm just curious, how does that work where you ascend to the light realms and then all of a sudden you decide, well, I'm going to go down to Earth and take a human body. And we were wondering why they chose a disabled body. And they said, well, first of all, they don't want to get stuck in the wheel of karma. They said that if you choose a disabled body, it's very difficult to actually accumulate karma in that lifetime. You have such a unique perspective on life, and you don't end up having the usual path that most people would take, like going to college and working a job 24, like for 25, 30 years, give or take, and then going through retirement and doing all that stuff. Is all of that, creating families and running careers and things, that can create karma. This is where it kind of compiles on people for a long time. They say just having children alone can create karma. So they are choosing more disabled bodies so they can come in, have an experience, and then leave again. And I was like, so what's the point then if they're just going to take a disabled body? And they say, well, they're still bringing that 12D frequency energy into the mix. Then I was like, so even though they're sitting in a human body, they're anchored into 3D because they chose to take a human body. So what does that mean for them? Are they going to be like, are they just a starseed here for one trip and that was it? And they said, yeah. Okay, so what is the purpose? They're holding the light. Nothing else? Not meant to have a human experience? Well, yeah, they might be learning about emotions that they might not have had experience with, or they might just be down here having an interest in what humans are going through. So they're curious and decide to take a human body, but they don't want to accumulate the karma. They don't want to risk getting stuck. So they chose to take a disabled body, even non-verbal, non-speaking. And I was like, okay, so is it because they're a telepathic race that they chose to be nonverbal? And they said, yes, they are extremely telepathic, to the point where they are so telepathic, they can read the minds of almost everybody around them. And that blew my mind. I was like, so they're basically like, in a way, I kind of think of them as like, what are they called? A savant in a way, but they can't express that they're so tuned in. Because without speech, like speech alone, we attribute so much. Like, think about dolphins, for example. We think we're smarter than dolphins because we can talk and they can't, because we have opposable thumbs. They dwarf our consciousness like nothing. You have to master being a human before you even think about taking a dolphin body. And yet we think we're more advanced because we can do stuff with our thumbs and speak words. Like, there's so much intelligence that is measured through speech. And if you don't really have an understanding is how telepathic some children can be, it makes it very hard to understand kind of what you're dealing with. You could have one of the smartest, brightest children in the world, and yet they'll be calling them, like, oh, disabled or this, or they'll say, oh, they've got learning disabilities. They could be smarter than the person who's running the entire school, and nobody will know. So I asked where this being came from, and they said it was high consciousness, like not even galactic, more interdimensional. And they don't even have names. Like they don't have a name for themselves. I was like, what could we call their race? And they're like, we don't have a name in English. So it's just really interesting that that is the whole job for this individual, is to just hold the light, to hold 12D frequency in 3D. And I think that's so beautiful. I think that, I mean, can you imagine how difficult it must be? And then we asked about the whole plan for all of this, because parents sometimes have a really hard time going through all of this, like going through the different stages of raising a child who has struggles in these aspects. And there are so many different reasons for this, and I think the biggest reason is because so many souls are coming in right now. Anybody watch the telepathy tapes? The telepathy tapes are one of the coolest things I've ever, if it's a podcast, I hope you guys will go and check it out on YouTube. The telepathy tapes, I suggested this to the mother that we were doing a clearing on, because the telepathy tapes are probably one of the best perspectives that you can get for nonverbal children. Carolyn says, trying to put things into words doesn't always do it justice. We can ruin some concepts trying to put them into human language. So brilliantly said, Carolyn. Exactly. We do that a lot. Trying to quantify things in English. We had a conversation with Metatron the other day, and I was giggling to myself about it because I learned quite a bit about soul evolution. And I told you guys about it a little bit on, I think it was on Monday, about how certain souls can be like way more advanced. But when you try and stick them in a human body, you have no idea how advanced they could actually be. They could have had millions and millions of lifetimes as a highly advanced being, and then you stick them in a 3D human body, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. Because this planet is unlike anywhere else, I think. I think we're dealing with things here on this planet that a lot of galactic races have no understanding of whatsoever. In fact, some of them are still gaining a new perspective on this. Nordic Pleiadians are a great example of this. Any Nordics here? We love them. The Nordics, I call them the sweetie pie Pleiadians. And I asked Zach the other day, I was like, they don't mind me calling them sweetie pie Pleiadians, do they? And he goes, no, they actually think it's very sweet of you. I was like, oh, okay, of course they would. But the Nordics, aka the sweetie pie Pleiadians, they're the tall white types. They're the pale, they look albino almost, very much like the Salacians. In fact, they have a lot in common with the Salacians, even though there's no relation there. I know you are, Chantal. Yes. So the interesting thing about the Nordics is they chose to come here to hold the light, so to speak, right? They came here, they're like, I want to help with the shift as much as possible. So they bring these very high frequency light codes with them. They bring these beautiful higher perspectives. They bring so much love and compassion and consideration for others, and they just want to help. That's their mission for being here. They just want to help. So many of them get here with the perspective of, send me in, coach. Let's see what I can do. And then they get in, they take a human body, and then they're attacked immediately. Or they get bullied for being sweet. Because you know what happens with really sweet children? They kind of get pushed around. Well, the same thing happens even as adults. Many of them have struggles with boundaries. Many of them struggle with feelings of guilt that they're not doing enough, guilt that they're not, just, they're the type that wants to do more all the time. They would literally give the shirt off their back for somebody else. And yet they tend to put themselves last. They tend to get attacked more than anybody else. Why? Well, because you're a bright light, first of all. That bright light calls a lot of attention to you. But I had a conversation. This is one of the things that I do on rare occasions when I find something really messed up. Last night, I was actually on the phone talking with a client that I had just cleared. First, the reason I called him was, one, I wanted to make sure that he was okay, because seeing this report, reading what was in his report, this is somebody that I know kind of well, and to a little bit degree, because he's been following the podcast for so long. He's a Nordic himself. he is somebody who's been dealing with attacks pretty much his whole life, like many other Nordics do. New star seeds tend to attract a lot of attention, we'll put it that way. But when he sent me this submission for a clearing and I read, so when I first read his submission form, I thought, oh shit, he's slipping into psychosis. I even told him this honestly during the phone call last night. I got concerned immediately. I read his submission and I thought, oh no. Like, oh no. Because what he was experiencing was so messed up that I think he probably would have preferred to be making it up than to actually be experiencing what he was experiencing. So I wanted to talk to him to see that he's okay. I did ask him for permission to talk about this today. And I'm very grateful that he was okay with that, because I would have waited or not mentioned it at all, depending on how he would have felt about it. But he's actually concerned for other people, which is such a Nordic thing. Even Nordics are more concerned about other people all the time. So this gentleman told me that he was under attack, that there were bite marks, I believe. I can't remember exactly the words he used in his submission form. And that he felt something was implanted. Choosing my words very carefully. I'm not trying to lose 100 people immediately. People are like, nope, that's enough internet for today. I'm sure you can guess what I mean by implanted. So he booked a clearing. And this was a while back. We cleared everything that we thought we knew about. We cleared everything, and he said that he felt better, but it wasn't like it wasn't completely gone. And then a couple days ago, he felt another visit, and they attacked him even stronger than they did the first time. And he was explaining that he felt all kinds of weird sensations all over his body. And when I tuned in, and Zach, I'm a little bit shell-shocked myself just from this one clearing. Guess what we found on him? I'll show you. I was curious this morning if I could come up with something similar to how I saw it in my head last night. And I kind of did. That's what I saw in my head. That's what he was attacked by. And it's not small. This little fucker is 3 foot tall. He's half your height. So he felt like he was being stabbed by something, and then he felt he was also being bitten by something. And we find that on him. We found puncture wounds and bite marks. We had to do psychic surgery to remove what they had implanted. We'll put it that way. There were 2 of them, a male and a female. And the symptoms that this gentleman were getting, I don't even want to tell you what the symptoms were. They're just the symptoms alone would probably make a normal person end up in a mental health ward. And I'm still shaken. Jessica, you already know. I didn't want to say it. You guys can say it. I can't say it. So it's going to take a couple days for this client to feel better. It's probably going to feel worse. The guides were like, you're probably going to feel worse before you feel better. So I honestly, like, my skin is crawling still thinking about it. Like, and this poor gentleman is such a sweet guy, like such a lovely person. And he's been through the ringer with these things. And I asked, where the hell did you pick something like that up? And he's like, I think in the astral. And sure enough, I asked the guides, yep. I'm still kind of speechless. This was last night. I was doing these clearings at like 9 o'clock last night. And that's why I actually ended up like messaging the client, like, can I call you? Can we talk about this before I even send you the report? Because I don't want you to read, because I didn't even know, because this client could handle it. I know he could. He's very well educated. He knows just as much as I do about galactics and this sort of thing. So I knew he could handle the information, but I wanted to make sure that he was okay hearing it. I am honestly like just so this job, don't get me wrong, I love this job. There's nothing in this world that I would want to do more than what I currently do. But there are some days, there are some days where I'm just like, oh my God, get me out of here. Like knowing that these beings exist. And there's nice ones too. Don't get me wrong. In fact, you might recognize these guys. Anybody ever seen one of those? These are the nice beings. There are 6 to 7 foot tall mantis type beings that exist who are very well dressed, very dapper looking, I must say. They're probably one of the best dressed galactics out there. They tend to live in their own kind of societies in a way. Some of them are on Mars, some of them are on other planets, etc. Some have their own bases underground and that sort of thing. There's so many different types of mantis beings. And just like there are good humans and bad humans out there, you get the good ones and the bad ones. But Adriana's here. Hi, honey. Nice to see you. But yeah, Adriana said Zach was ready to leave. Zach was like, nope, I quit. He was joking. I knew he was joking. In fact, we were having a little bit, because this is why I don't send recordings of my clearings. And sometimes you have to laugh at the sheer fuckery that we deal with on a daily basis. Sometimes that's the only thing you can do. Sometimes it's so crazy. All you can do is laugh at how insane it sounds. But I was talking to the client and I said to him, I was like, man, part of me was so concerned that you had, snapped somehow and that you were kind of experiencing shit that wasn't real, that this was psychosis. And he's like, I wish. He's like, psychosis would have been easier than dealing with what I've been dealing with. And imagine going to a doctor and being like, oh, I have puncture wounds all over my body that nobody can explain. Nobody knows where they're coming from or why they have sticky, weird residual energy around them. I was wondering where the sticky energy was, because he said it felt sticky, like he was covered in spider webs. You know what it was? It was the freaking bites. When they bite you, they had like this stuff that they secrete from their bite wounds. And that's why he had like sticky webbing feeling all over. Oh my God. I'm not even laughing at the fact that it's funny. I'm laughing at how just shocking this whole thing is, and how even the galactics have no idea what we're dealing with down here. Zach, you should have seen how Zach reacted to this last night. He was like, even the Salatians. Even the Salatians, who are pretty much one of the most advanced galactics out there, they see some of the shit that we have to deal with on Earth, and they're like, oh, dear God. And I said to Zach, I was like, thank God that we are able to help this guy. Could you imagine, like, if we weren't around doing this work, what option would he have to get rid of the attachments? We'll put it that way, that they put. He would have been screwed. There would have been, I mean, honestly, I can't think of, we had to call on the Arcturians. The Arcturians are pretty much the most advanced healers we have. And even the Arcturians were like, we humans are, it's bad enough that we were created as an experiment, but the fact that we're still being experimented on, the fact that we are still being horribly treated and used as, I don't even know what, incubators, like just, I try to keep my podcast positive, but when I see things like this, especially before bed, like I was about to go to sleep like an hour later after doing this work. I had to go to sleep right after thinking about this. I'm like, Fergus, you better keep me in my body tonight. I don't want to go anywhere. You can super glue the lid shut. Please. Thank you. Because that's how I picked it up. Because I was curious. I'm like, wait a minute, where did a mantis come from? We've only found those in Australia. It's usually you Aussies that have to deal with this shit. Ugh. Christian says incubators. Yeah, I'm not joking, Christian. I wish I was. My mentor, if you want to listen to it, there's videos. If you go look on Dr. Terrence Palmer's YouTube channel, there are some case studies where they had to remove things from people's etheric field. Your etheric field is a very good incubator. It's got the perfect amount of energy and warmth and things required for, yeah. I don't even want to say it. Can you tell I'm trying not to say it? I don't want to say it. No. You get what if you can get what I'm putting out, and if you can't, it's probably better. It's probably better that you don't understand what I'm trying to say right now. Ugh. Exactly, Jessica. Like a host for something else to grow. Astral things can use humans to do as such. Yes, they can. They can, and they often do. Reptilians do it the most. Reptilians make nests all over the place. They make nests everywhere. In fact, if you had seen what the nest looked like in the Orion Wars, there were whole factories. We're talking like size of like Amazon warehouses filled with reptiles making nests. That's how the Orion Wars got started. So I'm sure they still are doing that in other locations, but in certain places, they tend to use humans as the warm, squishy spot to lay their babies. I know. I can change the subject. I'm not trying to freak everybody out today. To be honest, part of me was like, should I even mention this today? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to, because even though it may be really disturbing to hear, that poor gentleman is still dealing with it. How messed up is it that this Nordic, who chose to come here and have to be of help, to be assistant to humanity, decided to come here and be of service, and this is the thanks he gets. And he didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't like, he was just wandering around the astral. And we tend to do that, right? Like we're just kind of wandering around at night, not really knowing what we're doing, where we're getting up to. Katie says, what kind of Pleiadian are you, Laura? I am Tegetan. I'm from a planet called Era. 12,600 years ago, give or take. Give or take. Oh, you're Nordic. Cool. There's a lot of Nordics out there. And many of them are dealing with the exact same thing. We should have like a Nordic Pleiadian support group. We'll call it the Sweetie Pie Pleiadian group or something like that. But it's basically a group where you guys can all teach each other boundaries. Where you can, pat each other on the back for all the good work that you're doing and to keep it up. We should actually, in my opinion, I think we should have a bunch of different support groups for this reason. You could always just say a group of Pleiadians, for example, but honestly, I think Starseed support groups are really important. I have a Starseed support group. Are you guys even using it lately? It's called Starseed. Where is it? Starseed support group. Where is it? Starseed support network. There it is. So it's 6,500 friends. I'm dropping it in the link real quick. Sarah said, how do you find out what you are? Through the Akashic Records, usually. I just dropped the link. There's the link for it. I'll copy the name in case you want to validate you're getting in the right group. It's called there it is. The Starseed Support Network. We also have one on Astara as well. We have a Starseed group. So you can do an Akashic Records reading. You can book a full detailed, and I can ask your guides if you would like it recorded. If you guys notice, when you go on my website, there's different types of clearings you can book. The standard is the SRT clearing. The full SRT is what most people tend to get. That's the $99 one. There is a full detailed one that helps you with understanding sovereignty a bit more. So if you want to know where the beasties are getting in, what past life trauma they're exploiting, that sort of thing. That's why people tend to book the full details. But if you want an Akashic Records reading with Adriana, for example, and you are unable to, I mean, a lot of people don't want to wait the 4 months. I think it's 4-month waiting period right now to have a session with Adriana. If you would like to know who your guides are, if you would like to know what kind of starseed you are, if you would like to have a word with some deceased loved ones, that is what the mediumship reading add-on is for on my website. So if you look, there's a mediumship add-on. That's what that's for. I will send you a recording of the mediumship session for that. So mediumship sessions are a little bit more because they're a lot more draining for the medium. And we do get quite a few of those. In fact, you guys have been booking a lot of mediumship sessions. So if you don't want to wait the 4 months for Adriana to sit down and have a face-to-face with her, which a lot of people are waiting. I mean, I think 4 months is actually not very long to wait. It goes very quickly and it's worth it. And if you have a whole lot of questions, then you may as well just wait the 4 months and book a session with Adriana. There's lots of different people out there that do Akashic Records readings. She's the only one that I trust completely. She's the only person I would go to for an Akashic Records reading. I know lots of other people who are amazing Akashic Records readers, and it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with my history and my trust. Adriana has, like, let's just say she's earned my trust 100%. So this is why I only go to her for that kind of information. But you guys can go to whoever you like. Take that information from whoever you like. Just take what resonates and leave the rest. But if you are unable to wait the 4 months and you would like to know who your guides are, what kind of starseed you are, if you're an earth seed, if you're a new starseed, if you're a veteran starseed, you can book a mediumship reading. I'll record it and then I'll send you the recording. And that is the only one where you can choose your own questions now. I took out where you can choose your own questions for the full detail because people were asking absurd questions that were absolutely completely irrelevant to the clearing, and that needed to go. People were asking questions about ex-wives and all kinds of shit that has nothing to do with the person or the clearing or any relevant important information. So I limited the questions people can ask in that influence for that reason, because people didn't really know how to ask good questions. So if you don't know how to ask good questions, then you may as well stick to a full detailed. But if you would like to know who your guides are, what kind of starseed you are, things about your history, whatever you want to know, you can ask. And I will record that session through the mediumship session. I only do those with Adriana and Sam at this point. I have trust issues, okay? That's all I'm going to say. I have a lot of trust issues. It has nothing to do with, yeah. I'm not going to go into why. I just do. Okay. We go back 13,000 years or so, you know. Where was another question somebody asked? I just saw it. It was a good question, then it out of my brain. Where did it go? Yes, all of our clearings are done online. We do a lot of traveling and do a lot of spirit release work online or in person, but predominantly all of our clients are cleared online. We tune into your energy. All we need is your full name, preferably your maiden name if you changed your name, so your birth name, your date of birth, and your current location. This is the same information that Edgar Casey would receive for doing Akashic Records readings. The reason this happens is because your soul guides, our soul guides, I should say, can locate you anywhere in the world based on that information. That information is unique only to you. Yeah, there could be a Bob Smith that was born on the same exact day, but he's not going to be in the exact same location, right? So even if the name is the same for somebody else, even if the date of birth is the same, you could have somebody with the same name, same date of birth, but they're not going to be in the same town and location in the world. So, but you know what's interesting? I had somebody book a mass clearing yesterday. They had the full name, they had the names, they had the country, which was China, but they did not have the date of births accurately. In fact, they depicted all the date of births the same. And so I was like, shoot, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to find these people? So Carolyn and I got clever, didn't we, Carolyn? We went and we asked the guys. We found the person who booked it information because he's already booked clearings for himself before. So I went back into his submission forms from previous clearings that he got done. We tuned into that individual. Then we used him as the relay point to find the other people. So we tuned into him and then we used his information and his guides and his cords to find the 10 people in China that he booked for, which was really cool. So I was like, well, we might as well shove him in the bubble too, since he booked this for 10 other people. It was very cool of him, by the way. The guides were like, that is very nice of him. That was probably one of the first clearings that I've done in China. And to be honest, it was a full report. We'll say there was a lot going on in that report. So just reading through. Do you guys have any questions about anything like that? Angelina enjoyed her trip to China. I bet she did. I would love to go to China and do more clearings. I want to go to Russia as well. Russia really needs some clearings. Stalingrad is probably my biggest. That's going to be the. That's going to be a doozy. For those of you who aren't aware of what I'm talking about, Stalingrad is the largest battlefield in history that we're aware of. 2 million people died. 2 million people died in one battle. It's the biggest in human history that we are aware of post Orion Wars. I'm sure during the Orion Wars we lost a lot more than 2 million. Imagine how that clearing is going to go. That's a doozy. We have all kinds of clearings that we are planning for this summer, which is why we're going on our UK ghost busting tour. We plan on traveling all around Wales, around England, and we've got 2 locations in Scotland that we'll be hitting up. So if you guys are interested in coming and hang out with us, we will let you guys know where we'll be. There'll be a specific hangout date, one in Wales, one in England around the solstice, and then maybe 1 or 2 in Scotland. We'll see. But we'll have a hangout day where you guys that are local want to come and hang out with us and maybe even watch some clearings or something. We can talk about that. Maybe have a lunch or something together. So we can kind of hang out with more people, which would be very cool. Gail wants to know if we're doing a clearing for the collective today. Are any of my SRT mediums hanging out? I saw Carolyn was here. Carolyn, are you still around? We have 200 people watching right now. We could do a clearing. Carolyn said, oh, the other Caroline and Carolyn. Caroline says, I'm glad you're visiting Wales. Parts are very low and dense energy. We need pretty much all over this planet has those pockets of dense energy. Carolyn's around. Perfect. Can we ask the guides to do a clearing today? Just gather up whatever beasties need to go to source for today. We do clearings pretty much all over the world. We have somebody just said, can you do central Vermont? We travel everywhere in the astral. Like, if you think about it, I've had nearly 6,000 bookings. And I wish from the beginning that I had created some kind of a map to show you. But we've pretty much done clearings in every country on this planet. Every state. There's not one state that I haven't done clearings in yet. We do a lot of this work remotely. In fact, today we'll be doing a lost soul rescue. I think that was the plan for today, is to do a lost soul rescue. They're our favorites. We love those. I'm sorry, Christian. Christian's still thinking about the incubators. I know, this is one of the reasons why I was in a struggle about whether or not to even mention it this morning. I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say. Trust me when I say I wish I had better things to talk about sometimes. If you guys would like a clearing, feel free to just say so in the comments. You can say it out loud. The guides will be popping in to check and see whatever's around. They just collect the beasties. They don't do a full clearing. They're not going to remove implants and all of that stuff. But they do come and collect whatever beasties are in your close proximity that shouldn't be there. Why? Why do we do this? Because every single one that we collect helps to move the shift along faster. Every earthbound we cross, every beastie we send to source, every soul fragment we collect and send back to where it belongs, it helps the shift. So this is only temporary. This is not, this may have been something that we've been dealing with for a long time, but we're getting towards the end here. This is one of the reasons why they're acting as desperate as they were. Because they know that the end is nigh, so to speak. Just reading through the comments. I'm so glad so many of you are getting clearings today. Wonderful. Some of you are even mentioning your pets. That's great. If you don't ask, you don't get, right? So why not? I'm still speechless. I don't even know what to say right now. I'm still pinching myself sometimes about all this. I feel insane even talking about it. That's the human side of it. Trying to quantify things that we can't see. Jessica says, clear my mind, yo. Yeah. Do a flush and a purge. That's what we call it. Flushing and purging. That's when you're getting rid of the bad juju and the negative thoughts. Katie said, can you explain how death loops work? I'm confused on how they work with different timelines. So a death loop happens when somebody dies in a moment of shock. That happens when that's like a glitch in the matrix. So a death loop is not something that's actually supposed to happen to earthbounds. This is something that happens because of the 3D matrix. The 3D matrix is what causes it to happen. So it's basically like a repeat. When you die, let's say that you, I don't know, die in a car accident or in a plane crash. This is one example that we had. One gentleman, he and his wife used to fly everywhere all the time. He had a pilot's license and a single engine Cessna. And one day, his plane exploded in midair. This is on one trip out of like 10 that his wife didn't go on. Like his wife was supposed to go with him. She wasn't feeling well. She said, okay, you go without me. And that was the trip where his plane exploded in midair. So she booked a lost soul rescue to see how he's doing, to see if to see if he's crossed over. She's obviously very distraught and upset and missing him like crazy. She wanted to make sure that he was okay. So we tune in to his energy. If you give us the person's name, their date of birth, their date of death, and the location and where they died, at least in proximity, you could say just a country where they died would be enough. But town helps, narrowing it down helps a little bit just to make sure that we found the right person. And we could tune in to where their perception is. If they're already crossed over, their perception will be in the high astral. They'll be in whatever you want to call it, heaven. We tend to call it heaven because that's what most people know it as, but it's really the high frequency part of the in-between portion of our experience. And so this gentleman, we tuned in and he was in a death loop. And so when I say a death loop, what do I mean? I mean, he was exploding over and over and over and over and over again, thousands of times. Just boom, 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 like that. It's not like, Yeah, I'm sure some of you have seen, especially episodes of like, I don't know, Supernatural or something, where somebody ends up in a void and then they end up repeating. It's like Groundhog Day, where they repeat the same thing over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day, but a skipping record version. You're not experiencing the whole day over. You're not experiencing the last hour of your life over. You're experiencing the last moment of your life over and over and over and over and over again. It's not supposed to happen. It's a glitch. So it happens in a moment of extreme distress and shock and awe, and your whole soul is just like, wow, what just happened? That's what creates a death loop. So a lot of times when people ask for a message from their loved ones, if they were in a death loop, we weren't able to get one. Why? It's not because they don't want to give a message. It's because when we pull them out of the death loop, they're so discombobulated. They don't know what's up, down. They have no idea what's happening. And they have to go to the healing place before they can kind of get that coherence back. So if I put in your report that the overlay we found was a death loop, chances are you're going to notice there was no message, because they aren't capable of giving a message. So I decided to mow the lawn right next door. So if they're incapable of giving a message, chances are it's because they were so traumatized by what they experienced in the death loop, it was a lot harder. So once we pull them out of the death loop and send them to the healing place, they're fine. It clears the trauma. It helps to release all of that for them. Can a new starseed get into death loop? No, new starseeds have their guides with them, making sure that they're going where they're supposed to go. So new starseeds are slightly different. I mean, glitches can happen regardless. Glitches can happen to everybody, but chances for death loops is slightly different. Like I said, it's a glitch. Somebody asked, do they experience suffering while in the glitch? Yes, they do. That's part of the reason why they have to go for extra healing before they can give a message. So this is part of the reason why the biggest passion I have, other than obviously helping people with mental health stuff and dealing with reptilians and all this, is helping earthbounds to make sure they're crossed over. So can we be healed from trauma here? Yes, you don't need to go to the healing place for the trauma. In fact, many souls choose to come here now because this is the most opportunity we have to heal. There are certain versions of me that I have connected with. The version of me who died in prison as a witch wound, Margaret. When I was connected to Jenna, I could feel it as well. Jenna was my Scottish lifetime around Culloden. When I connected with that other version of myself, I almost had this exact feeling of them handing me luggage. Like that's exactly the image I had in my head when I connected with Jenna, because I wanted to connect with her and kind of, because one of the reasons why is I was trying to figure out what Jenna's last name was. I don't know why. I was just trying to channel it to see if I could figure out who I was in that lifetime, just out of curiosity. This is going back to Zach saying, stop digging up dead bodies, Laura, but I can't help it because I have an insatiable curiosity to learn more about the other versions of myself. And so as I was tuning in, trying to find out what my last name was, that's what I got handed instead. I didn't get the last name. I just see Jenna handing me 2 suitcases. And I didn't understand what that meant. I was trying to figure it out. And I was like, what does that even mean? Why would Jenna be handing me suitcases? And then all of a sudden I realized she had no healing whatsoever. The suitcases were loaded with trauma. They're like, here you go. I didn't get an opportunity to heal in that lifetime. There were no resources available. I didn't have the opportunity to heal. And in fact, I ended up dying of disease or something, or I can't remember. I actually am pretty sure that I ended up dying very shortly after. But they were like, here you go. Here's the luggage. You forgot this. So why was she handing it to me? Because she didn't get a chance to heal it. It's like, oh, by the way, sorry, I didn't get a chance to heal this, so here you go. Now it's your turn to deal with it. And every time you tune into a past life version of yourself, you end up taking on a little bit more of that baggage without even knowing you're doing it. So how do you release it? Acceptance, forgiveness. You can do as we were talking about yesterday, you can do a burn and release ceremony. You can practice Ho'oponopono. You can send love and healing to the other versions of yourself, whatever version they may be, wherever they may be. There's two versions of me that were killed as a witch. One died in prison of starvation. That was Margaret. And then I have another version of me. I don't know her name. That is when they threw me in the ocean. They chained me to some rocks. I bobbed up and down. I'm naturally very buoyant. That's a skill I've taken with me from many lifetimes. It's my natural buoyancy. In fact, Bradley is very jealous. Bradley sinks like a rock, but I can just float like nothing. I don't know why, I just do. Well, apparently I floated in that lifetime. I floated all night long, even when the tides came in. And they were so mad that I didn't drown that night before that when the morning broke, they threw me on the fire. They were like, all right, she's going in the fire then. So I got the trauma of both. So how do you heal something like that? Well, first of all, I'm working on it. This is not something that you can heal overnight. I've started to notice that there is certain triggers that come up. I think especially when I'm dealing with authority, because my issues with authority are very, very strong. We'll put it that way. That's the number one way to trigger me, is to have somebody who doesn't even know who I am come and tell me about my life or what to do with my life. I do not handle authority very well at all. And I think a big part of that is the witch wound I'm healing. And I'm sure some of you also have an imposter syndrome as well, a fear of standing out. So this is why we're spending so much time and effort trying to educate people, trying to help other people who've been in similar situations. So Carolyn and I are teaching a class in a couple weeks about that. So if you guys are interested in learning about how to heal the witch wound, which it could be an Inquisition wound too. It doesn't have to be a witch wound. It can be a Cathar wound. It could even just be a wound of persecution. Just persecution in general can make you too afraid to stand out, to speak your truth, to follow certain pathways in life, like as a healer, for example, because you're scared of, being burned at the freaking stake over it again. So there's a lot of aspects in regard to that healing. And that's one of the reasons why Carol and I will be teaching a class on that. That'll be 3 weeks from tomorrow. 1 week from tomorrow, we are teaching our Reiki 2 course. So for those of you who have signed up for Reiki 1, Reiki 1 was I think about a month ago, maybe a little bit more. So we've had some time for people to practice what they learned in the Reiki class. And if you're interested in taking the second part, so Reiki 2 is all about being able to practice Reiki on other people. So Reiki 1 is when you're learning how to heal yourself. Reiki 2 is when you're learning more about healing other people. You're learning more symbols. You're learning on how to work on animals and stuff too. So if you're really interested in learning about Reiki 2 and you would like to either be a practitioner, we are going to be doing Reiki 3, but we're working on getting accredited for that so that it's an actual, like a Reiki certification for the professional Reiki side of it. So to be an actual Reiki master, we're planning on doing that as well. But that will probably be towards the end of the year. As I mentioned, we are trying to get accredited for that through the official channels. We wouldn't want to attune you to master and then have you not be an actual master in the eyes of the Reiki gods, so to speak. So it's 111-222 and probably 333. We'll see about Reiki 3 being that price. It depends on how much time and effort and money it costs to get accredited. So we will be discussing that later on. We've been planning, that'll be at the end of the summer at the very earliest. For those of you who missed Reiki 1 and you're interested, we can talk. If you message me privately, we might be able to talk about doing a recording and maybe a separate attunement. I could maybe see about doing that. I'll have to talk with Kara. Kara is my friend who's doing this clearing with me. For those of you who don't know who Kara is, Kara April A very good friend of mine. She's a Salation, just like our Adriana. And she works with Salations as a healer. She has three Salation guides that work with her as healers. So Kara is a phenomenal healer. And she and I are just so in alignment with the healing and the way that we like to do the healing and the way we bring in our guides and the way we use crystals. And so that is why Kara and I have partnered up for doing the Reiki training. She's a phenomenal healer. She is an angel in human form. I can't wait. For those of you who don't know Kara, I would bring her in, but she works with children throughout the day. Her main human job is working with children, so she's unable to come on the podcast midweek because she works at a school. But you guys will get to meet her on next Saturday, and you're going to love Kara. She's just a phenomenal healer. So even if you feel that you're not quite ready for practicing, Reiki 2 because you want some more experience, you can always sign up for Reiki 2 and then start practicing that. And then as you're ready, you can start doing it professionally for Reiki 3. It's up to you. Some people just sign up just because they love the attunements. Some people already have a Reiki 2 certification, but they want to learn more or they want another attunement. This is one of the reasons why we keep the prices very reasonable. In fact, I know somebody who spent over $5,000 on their Reiki training. I also know somebody who paid I know quite a lot of somebody's who paid more than $5,000 for their SRT training too. So we do try our best to make sure that there are more cost-effective options for people who would like the same training, because we realize people cannot, especially these days, spending that much money on training is crazy. But if you do it through the official channels, that is how much it can often cost. And it's a lot. So if you are interested, Carla says that she's taken Reiki 2 but would like a refresher. There you go, Carla. This will be a great opportunity then, honey, because you'll get a certification as well. Everybody gets a certification for Reiki 1, Reiki 2, and Reiki 3. But it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to practice. And especially if you are going to be working on other people, sometimes it does help to have a refresher anyway. So plus, you'll get healing because we'll be doing healing exercises. We'll be tuning in with our guides. We'll be learning. There's so much that we do during Reiki training. It's so much fun. I love it. So if there's any questions about those classes, I will be doing Reiki. People are asking about SRT 1. SRT 1 will be in July 11th. That'll be when I'm home in between my ghost busting tours, because I'm going to the first ghost busting tour in June, and then I'm going on a second ghost busting tour across Poland and Scotland in August. We have a lot of work to do in Poland and Germany and a few other places. I'm focusing more on World War II stuff right now. Like I said, Stalingrad, 2 million people. We got our work cut out for us. People are asking about SRT 2. I don't even know if I'm going to do it this year. I don't know. It takes me 6 months to train somebody in SRT 2, and it's a lot of work. It's exhausting. I must say. I love you guys, but when next time I do SRT 2 training, it will be a very small group. Trying to train 70 people is what made it take 6 months. So if I do SRT 2 training this year, it will be a very small group. I am considering doing an in-person group. And if we do an in-person group, that will be end of maybe September, October. We're looking into doing a live class in person in Texas. We'll see. It depends on how things work out for the rest of the year. But trying to train 70 people, because keep in mind, that's how many, there were 100 and something people signed up for it the first round. Most of those people ended up just using it as like, oh, this is interesting. And then they leave. Some of them are still around, but many of them were just like, oh, this is cool. And then they learned what they could, and then they moved on, which is fine. We don't mind doing that. It's perfectly fine. The second round, we put a lot more time and effort into it. We ended up making the classes smaller. In fact, we ended up raising the rate as well for that reason. I could have raised the rate as well. My mentors, the ones who trained me, are charging £5,000 for training still. So even if I had raised my rates a bit more, I would have been well within my right to do so. But at the same time, having more money does not make you more likely to be ready for this work. It doesn't. Not at all. Not at all. Just having more money does not mean that you are more prepared for this work. So, one of the things that I will be doing is requiring an essay. I am requiring an essay for anybody who will be taking SRT2. And then I will read your essay and then decide if I feel that you are ready to join us. I have to do it that way because there are a lot of people who signed up that did not know what they were getting themselves into. I told you guys, I've told you this many times. This work is not for everybody. Not everybody. If you were part of the clearing that I sat in last night, for those of you who are just tuning in, you might want to rewatch the beginning of this podcast to listen to what we did, what we found in a clearing last night, and you'll understand why a lot of this is something that the vast, overwhelming majority of humans would not be able to handle. They have no idea. People have no idea what we actually have to deal with, what the mediums have to deal with, what the facilitators have to deal with. And I'm not just talking about the entities, because yeah, that's a big part of it. Harassment by entities is a big part of it. So I could have raised my rates, but no, instead of raising my rates, I want to see more effort from people. I want to see what your motivation is. And not only what your motivation is for doing the work, but what are you going to do with the certification? Are you going to add it to the business that you already have? I have some people that already have. I've had somebody that was a psychiatrist sign up for training so that they could clear their own clients. We have people that are healers that come in, hypnotists that come in, and they want to use this work so that they could clear their clients. And that is phenomenal. That is what we would love. We really would love people to add it to their work that they're already doing. And sometimes they tell their clients, sometimes they don't. And I'm not saying, like, for example, you don't need a spiritual background to get into this work. In fact, Bradley, for example, before he started doing this work, he didn't have any, official background in any of the spiritual subjects. In fact, he was kind of offended when the academy asked him, "Why are you here then?" And he's like, "Well, I'm spiritual. I may not have a spiritual business or background." And that's fine. Look at how phenomenal Bradley is. He's one of the best mediums we've ever had doing this work. So you don't need a spiritual background. You don't need to have spiritual experience in order to handle this work, but it helps. It really does help, especially if you're somebody like me who's been harassed for most of their life. I mean, I've been harassed by entities since I was probably about 5 years old. That's my first memories of harassment. So this is why I say, like, there's so many people who are built for this work. And when you find this work and you realize how you're built for it, you're like, yeah, I'm in. Just throw me in, coach. And that's how I was. I feel like this work, like my whole life, I've been in training for this work without even realizing that's why. I mean, I was dealing with poltergeists at 16 years old. Not many people can say that. They're quite rare. But as Carolyn, you're reading my mind as you always do. I love you. She says it needs to be balanced with professionalism and stability, not just spirituality. Yep. Absolutely true. How did you know that you were harassed? Nightmares, things that I saw, things that I felt, things that I had in my head that I didn't even understand what they were. If a 5-year-old, for example, has sexual things that pop into their head, like scenes popping up into their head, and has never seen anything like that before and has no understanding of what it is or what, it could possibly be, it just confused me. I didn't know what it was. They would put those things in my head and I'd be like, huh? And I would have no idea where it came from. And you know what's interesting? Guess what my father did as a profession? My father was a psychiatrist. My father brought his work home with him without realizing he was bringing it home with him. So there were beasties around on occasion. And that was when I was really young. There's other stuff that got way, way, way worse when I was a teenager. So when you have certain things popping up in your head that you don't even understand what they are, especially if they're R-rated, that's not you. You did not put that in there. That was an entity, 100%. And it caused intense shame and confusion. Like, seriously, I mean, if you think about it, the fact that I have that in my head, I'm 41 years old. And I have flashbacks of the horrible things they were putting in my head when I was 5 or 6. And that ended up creating shame and confusion. And I'm scared of boys. Actually, it might have protected me a little bit. It might have protected me a little bit. Because a lot of my friends were out being, having fun, younger than I was. And I was terrified of it. I was like, nope, stay away. So it actually probably ended up doing me a favor to some degree. But that's why it ended up causing so much shame and confusion for me that I wanted no part of it until I was an actual adult, like in my 20s. So that is not something children would naturally have in their head. That is not a natural thought for a child to be processing. You know what I mean? And the fact that I can still remember it, you know what I mean? And also remember that I was going to a born again Christian academy at that time. So God knows, who knows what kind of, on top of that programming, what else I was getting at that time. Because it was a very interesting school, put it that way. A born again Christian academy. I got paddled all the time. They paddled me like weekly. So there's a lot of this that we ended up bringing with us to adulthood without really even understanding where it came from. One person said, people who suffer from anxiety and panic attacks since very young, could this be that you're gifted or just entities? Well, as you already know, as you just mentioned, that you're an empath and that you can relate to those energies. Children are natural. Everybody is an empath, right? Everybody is. It's just that some are more sensitive to energy than others. Some are paying more attention than others, and some get overwhelmed sooner than others. So very strong empaths, especially ones that don't practice psychic protection, they're like a sponge. They just absorb energy from everybody. And if you're not well grounded, that energy is just rattling around inside you. And it's overstimulation is what it is. It's not letting your energy flow like it's supposed to, because if it was flowing through you properly, you'd be like a lightning rod, right? That energy would come through you and it would just pass through you. But the fact that the energy is rattling around, causing that feeling of inside you, you're not well grounded. You're not blocking that energy. So there's too much overstimulation coming in. And that will lower your vibration and make you more vulnerable to picking up stuff. But it's not to say that all anxiety is caused by entities. So we had one client a few weeks ago, where we did a clearing, and then they messaged us back and they said, can you check me? I'm still really feeling awful. So they tune in with the second medium to see what's going on, to get another perspective as to why this person still has the extreme anxiety, and that person was sovereign. So they were like, well, why do I still have anxiety if I'm sovereign? Why do you think that entities are the only cause for anxiety? Why would you think that just because the beasties are gone, that anxiety would be like gone for life? You never have to deal with anxiety again. No, entities love anxiety because that creates a low vibration, which makes it easier for them to attack or to siphon energy from you. But curing, you can't like cure anxiety by being sovereign. You still are going to have stress. And this is a stressful planet. We still all have bills to pay. We have shit to do. So it's one thing to get the beasties off your back that are making your emotions worse or making it too intense to handle. But it's another thing entirely to be like, oh, I shouldn't be having emotions if there's no entities attached. Of course you can. Thought forms are a big thing to mention as well. Yes, Cassandra, absolutely. Thought forms are a huge thing to discuss in this regard. Nikki said, Laura, are you intuitive? Would you mind if I asked a question? I think everyone is intuitive. We all have intuition. We're all intuitive. But go ahead. I'll read it anyway. I don't know if I'll answer it. Depends on what the question is. Some sensations can be caused by upgrades or sensitive. Oh, yes, very true, Jessica. I had one of those yesterday. In fact, I was sitting down, I was hanging out, getting ready to do clearings. And all of a sudden, my left ear started ringing. And it wasn't like Lord Shiva ring. Okay, Lord Shiva, when Lord Shiva comes in and my ears start ringing, it's like somebody put a kettle over my head and then started banging it with a metal spoon. Like that's how Lord Shiva, like when I see Lord Shiva's bell ringing, like my head just goes, oh, like that's how loud it is sometimes, right? It wasn't like that. It was softer and more like consistent. In fact, I didn't even notice it at first until it started to get louder and louder, and then it kind of plateaued, and then it started to dissipate. It got quieter and quieter and quieter. And I sat in with Carolyn, and I was like, "Is there somebody here?" And she's like, "No, there's nobody here." I was like, "Nobody's here." She's like, "Yeah, it's just Fergus. That's the only person standing with you." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know why I'm still hearing the ringing." So I was like, "Okay, maybe I've got tinnitus today." So it lasted for an hour. And I noticed when Carolyn and I got off the call, it was gone. So it had stopped somewhere during the call. And I was like, okay, cool. It's so nice, right? Like, finally quiet. So later on in the evening, I hear it again. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I sat down with Zach last night to do clearings in the evening. I should say with Adriana and Zach to do clearings. And I asked Zach about it. And I said, did I have a visitor today? And he goes, yeah, you did. And I said, well, who is my visitor? And he goes, Yeshua. And I was like, sweet. I'm like, thanks, Yeshua. And they said, he just popped in and do something real quick and then he left. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, why were my ears ringing? And they said, that was actually, he helped your getting guides with something. And I was like, what did he help my guides with? And they said, upgrades. And I was like, oh, upgrades? And they said, yeah, they're working on your left ear right now. So your hearing will improve. And I was like, my physical hearing or my astral hearing? And they're like, both. And I was like, yes. So sometimes when you hear that audible ringing in your ear, it could be that you're tuning into new frequencies. It could be that your guides are adjusting, doing some tune-up, so to speak. Your radio station is kind of getting tuned a little bit. It could also be linked to past life trauma because I've had a couple clients reach out and say, hey, why do I have this ringing in my ears? What is the cause of this? We have found it can be linked to head injury. One guy got blown up. That caused it. He's had ringing in his ears his whole life. He got blown up in a past life. Like literally like, yeah. So that caused the ringing in his ears and that was incurable. They were like, I'm sorry, there's nothing we could do about that, which is unfortunate. But there's lots of different reasons and causes to why your ears can ring. So if that's one of the things you're curious about, that is one of the things that you can ask during your mediumship session if you book one. But like I said, sometimes with psychic surgery, it can be corrected. Sometimes it can't. It really depends on how it got injured in the first place or what caused it in the first place, I should say. It's not always an injury. What about the sound of loud locusts in your left ear? That's an interesting one. I would have to ask because everybody's situation is unique. Like I said, there's 5 initial causes right there that it could be causing tinnitus. It could even be that you have crystals in your ear. Did you guys know that you guys have crystals in your ears? Look it up if you don't believe me. You have crystals in your ears. Your body grows crystals in your ears. They help with your equilibrium, right? Some people who get very dizzy very quickly and they get kind of like, they have issues with vertigo. That could be because the crystals in their ears are off kilter, so to speak. So yeah, that could be another thing causing it. Makes you wonder why our body grows crystals in our ears just to make us so we don't wobble, so we can actually, otherwise you end up feeling like you're seasick. I had a friend who had really bad problems with the crystals in her ears for the balance, and she felt like she was on a ship all the time. She was doing this all the time. If you hear these things at night too, before you're going in and out of consciousness, like you're starting to fall asleep, sometimes the ringing gets louder and louder. That could be your guides talking to you. It could be frequencies in your brain that are kind of acclimating. There's all kinds of things that can cause that, especially, and even for astral projection. I've taught you guys this in my astral projection class. One of the precursors for being out of body is the weird sounds you hear. Some people will hear it sounds like a jet engine. Some people will hear sounds that sounds like a whooshing sound, like wind rushing through like a tunnel. Some people will hear ringing, almost like chimes. So it depends on what frequencies you're tuning into when you're kind of getting out of body for that. The only thing if you have issues with the vertigo, the only thing you can really talk to is a doctor for that. The doctors can kind of help you with the crystals in your ears, but they have to know that's the problem. And a lot of times they won't even check for that. Yeah, if you hear the whoosh sound in an awaking state, that's probably you going back into your body. Some people hear the whoosh as they're leaving their body, some hear it as they're going back in, but chances are the whooshing is you coming in and out of your body. It's an interesting sound, isn't it? That whoosh sound that you get from it. Yes. Athena said, I have that experience at night. I ask my higher self to tone it down a bit and it goes away. If they have a message, my right ear rings. Chances are if I hear a subtle ringing in my ear, it's somebody trying to talk to me. Although the other day I was at a restaurant with my parents who were hanging out, and all of a sudden I felt like a sharp pain in my ear. It felt like somebody like taking a pin and like poking me in the ear. And I was a bit like, ow, what the hell is that? And it wasn't like a sharp pain, but it was enough to really be uncomfortable. And I said something about it, and I asked Fergus to make it stop, whatever it was. I'm like, whatever that is, just make it stop, please. And I asked Zach later on in the evening what it was because I was curious, and he told me that an earthbound was shouting in my ear. I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah, there's an earthbound coming up to you and be like, rah, 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 like screaming as loud as he could in your ear. And I just looked over at Fergus and I'm like, really? I hope you got him. But that's what happened. Straight up, like sharp pain in my ear from him screaming in my ear. How rude. Alana said, what does feeling nauseous when you wake up mean you're coming back into body after astral projecting? Anytime you're nauseous like that, whenever you're doing any form of divination work or you walk into a room and you start to feel nauseous, or even when you take psychedelics, those of you who have taken mushrooms know all about the nausea, know what I'm talking about. That nausea is a sign of rapid vibrational change. So if your vibration is going up really, really, really fast, like a rocket, that will create that feeling. If your vibration plummets and takes a big nosedive, let's say that you're a very high vibe person, but then you go into a hospital or something that is extremely low vibe and your vibration drops, you will feel the nausea. So it's the rapid change, whether it's up or down, that produces the nausea. That's why. So that nausea is a major red flag. Anytime any of you feel nausea like that, that is a call to attention. Very important for you to pay attention to that because nausea is usually it's a precursor. You get the nausea before you get the pain. Because as they're trying to get into your etheric, as you move into a low vibrational environment, your vibration will start to come down, and that's when the nausea happens. You will start to get the anxiety and the pain when they start trying to rip their way into your etheric. That's the difference. All right. So if you walk into an area and you feel nausea, but you don't feel a sudden anxiety, pain, or anything like that, it could just be that you're in an area with low vibration, right? That bad juju, the dark patches everywhere, and that sort of thing, right? So it doesn't mean that there's beasties in there. You can feel the nausea even without beasties around if it's that low of a vibration, right? So, or if you walk into somebody's etheric, somebody who doesn't do psychic protection, let's just say that you share etherics with somebody who's got a lizard attached, you're going to know immediately. Your vibration's just going to drop and you're going to feel that feeling, right? But when it gets worse is when you start to feel the pain and the anxiety. That means they're coming into your etheric at that point. Because they will straight up. We've seen this. This is how they do it. Your bubble of protection, they will literally claw their way into it. We've tuned into a medium. One of our mediums was getting harassed in her dream state. So this was a long time ago. I said, all right, I'm going to go check on this medium. And in the middle of the night, because this was a medium that was in the UK and I was doing clearings at night in the US. So I thought, I'm going to go check in on the medium and see how they're doing and see if they're being left alone today. So we tune in. And what do we see? She's all sleeping, all cute in her bed, all happy, trying to sleep. And we see a lizard and he's doing this, trying to get into her etheric, straight up like trying to get in. Little bastard. That's what they do. They have to rip their way into your etheric field in order for them to actually attack you physically. So that is what they will do. They will sit there and they will claw. If you are drinking alcohol, they don't even have to bother. You'll rip your own etheric right open. This is why we're always talking about the holes in the etheric and the importance of it. I shared a post just this morning about spirits attracting spirits. How many of you have seen somebody drunk start channeling an entity? Pretty much my whole life, I've been seeing it. Somebody who drinks alcohol. This is one of the things that people don't understand. There's so many substances that open you up to entities. So many different substances, but nothing compared to alcohol. They call it spirits for a reason. Absolutely. Laura says, why doesn't the gatekeeper step in when somebody's under attack? Well, if the gatekeeper is attacked first, how do you know that the gatekeeper wasn't pushed away by the time they're trying to climb into the etheric? Your soul guides get attacked too. This is something people do not understand. I can't tell you how many times I'll tune in and I'll be like, how's the client looking? And they'll be like, not so good. And I'll say, do they have imposters? And they'll say, no, they don't have imposters yet, but their guides are looking very beat up. I hear that all the time. So yeah, your guides can get their asses kicked too. So just for the record, you think your gatekeeper is just standing there, arms folded, watching you get your ass kicked. Sometimes they are. If you've never asked them for help, first of all, they're not allowed to violate your free will. If you don't ask for help, it actually goes against your free will to offer help without it. So if you're not asking for help, then yeah, they do have to stand by. But sometimes even when you're begging your gatekeeper for help, they can't really do much because they're outnumbered. If you've got 3 lizards trying to attack you and you have 1 gatekeeper that's trying to protect you, they're outnumbered. So your gatekeeper gets pushed away. So Alicia said, my guides were happy to see you. They usually are. The guides are usually like, thank God the cavalry has arrived. Most of the time, the guides are so relieved. And then I'm apologizing to them. I'm like, I'm sorry it's been so long. Sorry it's taken me 4 weeks to get here. But they're just so relieved that we're finally there to help give them some support and backup. So sometimes your guides are massively outnumbered. Laura says, do Irmas make good gatekeepers? They are the best. Me being Tegetten, I was wondering this. In fact, I asked Zach a while ago because I had 4 attempts on my life growing up. I had a lot of very close calls too. Like, I probably should not be here. Like, I'm just saying, there's a lot of reasons, a lot of moments in my life where I'm amazed. You should have seen the one scene with the leopard too. Even that one I shouldn't have walked away from. I don't know, I'm very lucky. We'll put it that way, right? I had 2 Irma gatekeepers. 2. And they were still exhausted. Pretty sure they looked like that one lion where the one, like the one at the end of the movie. What is that one movie? Oh my God, where the lion looks all frazzled, like he's just been through hell. That's what my Irmas probably look like. But this is why I say, like, even though, if you're going out drinking, for example, and you may have a gatekeeper, you may have a very strong gatekeeper with you. But if you are going to low vibrational places, hanging out with low vibrational people, doing low vibrational things, how good and strong do you think your connection is going to be? If your vibration is so different because you just went and did a whole bunch of stuff that is not very high vibe, do you think your connection to your high vibrational guides is going to be as strong? Probably not. So it is a form of self-sabotage sometimes to go out and do things that you know probably are not a good idea, to go out and do them anyway, just because you assume that your gatekeeper's got your back. Like, well, I probably shouldn't go out and do this thing, but that's fine. My gatekeeper's there. He'll keep an eye on me. Sometimes they even bring in entities. One of the craziest cases I've ever heard. If you guys go, you'll find the case study. It's on Dr. Palmer, my mentor's YouTube channel, Dr. Terrence Palmer. His YouTube channel has case studies. There's one called the succubus encounter, where a soul guide named Maria actually brought a succubus in. And we're like, why? Why would Maria do that? And they're like, well, she needed experience. She's going to be doing this work in the future. And how do you gain experience? Well, by going through it. So you can't really, it's like saying like how you'd be a good drug counselor if you've never been an addict. Would you be as good of a drug counselor if you've never been in that situation yourself before? If you've never kind of pulled yourself out of that darkness? How would you be able to better assist other people if you've never gone through that yourself? So sometimes that is the training. Sometimes, some of us go through addiction. Sometimes we go through periods of extreme distress, dark night of the soul kind of stuff. I went through that. Like I said, 4 suicide attempts between my teens and my early 20s. 4. I'm very lucky to still be here. And my Irma guides must have been exhausted trying to keep me here. But this is why I say that is why so many of us are struggling, is because that is the character building portion of our life. And I don't know if I would have the level of compassion that I have for other people if I hadn't been through the ringer myself. I think it humbles you. It really helps you to recognize what's important in life. Just the way I look at money. For example, living in South Africa for 5 years, actually it was about almost 7 years in total, changed my perspective about money for the rest of my life. When you are around people, when you see thousands of people all sharing one toilet, where you see 500 people lining up to use that toilet every morning, it gives you a whole new perspective on just appreciating what you have. Realizing how truly blessed you actually are. If you look at what people are going through in Gaza and Lebanon right now, and you still feel like you're unlucky, like your life, like you don't feel like you're lucky, you are. You absolutely are. And many of us don't really have an understanding as how blessed we actually are until we realize how screwed over a lot of other people are. So it is. Perspective is everything. It really is, Jenny. And this is part of the importance of that I am challenge that Bradley is doing. In fact, I'm going to go. I forgot to do mine this morning, actually, because I was running around like I had this chicken this morning. So I'm going to do it right now. Where is it? All right. So today is day 8. I have my affirmations here. You can say them with me if you want. You can say your own. I am love. I am safe. I am worthy. I am supported. I am protected. I am grounded. And I am calm. I gotta say that one again. I am calm. Feeling more calm than I was last night. That one clearing rattled my cage a little bit, I must say. Derek says, I am sovereign. Yes. Dipty says, I am blessed. Thank you very much for joining us with these affirmations, for changing your perspectives a little bit, and to just realize how lucky you really are, how blessed you are. Even if the only thing you have is your health, you are richer than many other people on this planet. If you have food in your refrigerator right now, you are more blessed than many other people on this planet. I know it's hard to feel blessed when the gas prices are high and the food, oh my God, the food has doubled. It's crazy. The price of food has doubled. And it's really hard to be grateful when everything just seems to be going to shit, but that's the most important time to be grateful. To be thankful for absolutely everything that we have and to express that gratitude in every opportunity that we get. So just be mindful, like things are going to get tougher. The guides have been saying that it is going to get a little bit tougher. And we don't know how challenging it can be. We don't know how bad it's going to get. But we're still better off than a lot of other people on other places in this world that I don't want to mention right now because I don't want to get flagged in the censors. But we are blessed. We are extremely blessed. And that is something that we really, really need to take more into consideration on a daily basis as to how lucky we really are to still be here, to have food in our, in our houses, and to have a roof over our head, and to not be having bombs dropping on our fucking heads right now. Because there's a lot of people who don't have the same level of luck and bless that we do. So the more we can help other people, the more we can do something and speak up about the things that are happening in this world, the better. I am calm. It's going to keep saying it a lot today. And it's going to get crazier, yes, with all these new disclosures that people are talking about. Absolutely. There's a whole lot. I don't know if you guys have heard, but apparently a whole bunch of evangelists were just briefed by the administration about aliens. I wish I could have sat in on that meeting. Can you imagine? They're having a whole bunch of televangelists sitting at a big table surrounded by one person at the front who's like, all right, guys, they're not demons. They're actually aliens. And how funny that conversation must have been. And I would love to hear what the government and how the government would explain aliens. Because, for example, they've already known about aliens since the 40s. Do you know who did the most in-depth depiction of galactics? It wasn't the American government. Anybody know who studied more galactics than anybody else? In fact, they ended up having a whole, pretty much a book that came out about different types of galactics. Anybody know what government it was? Derek knew. It was the Russians. Yes. The Russians know more about galactics than anybody else. The Russians have been talking with them more than anybody else. Russia. Yes. Just talking alone about David Wilcock's Russian pyramid research. They know there's some really crazy research that they've done. They're having full-blown conversations with galactics on a daily basis in Russia. They know all about it. How do we know? Because they're so accurate. The information they're giving out, it is 100% true. A lot of it is. The information they put out about Greys, about Pleiadians, about Reptilians, about all these different types. The Russians. I'm telling you. I think they're talking to galactics on a daily basis. Somebody just said, I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised at all. Well, they tried to talk to the West, and the West laughed at them off. First person to talk to them was Eisenhower. Eisenhower was not impressed with the Pleiadians that showed up because the Tagetans that showed up were all women. Eisenhower was like a bunch of broads getting off of this thing trying to tell us what to do. Eisenhower was not impressed. He was like, I'm sure when all the women came off the ship and they're walking over to him, I'm sure he was looking behind them going, where's the men at? Eisenhower was not impressed meeting a bunch of women. They should have thought that one through a little bit. You know what men were like in the 50s? They weren't really even listening to women at all back then. So no, Eisenhower did not take them seriously, especially when the first thing they wanted to talk about was nuclear disarmament. He was like, "Oh hell no, we're not. Get out of here." You know, they didn't care one bit. And then they tried again during the Nixon administration. They went to Nixon and tried to talk to Nixon about nuclear disarmament. And he said, "Get lost." He called them space hippies. Nixon had no interest in this conversation. Nixon was like, "Get out of here, you bunch of space hippies." That's straight up what he called them. Told them space. They're like, "Stop blowing up your planet." And he's like, "Get out of here, you space hippie." So they tried to talk to the West. It didn't work. They also tried to talk to a few other people, including the painter. I'm not going to say his name. They tried to talk to the painter too, but I'm pretty sure the painter had his mind destroyed by those amphetamines that his chemists were developing. So they tried to talk to him. That's where the whole Vril Society came from. Anybody know about the Vril Society? I'm telling you, there's so much history here that will blow your mind. Galactics have been involved in politics on this planet for over 80 years now. Wilby says Picasso. I'm not talking about Picasso. Some of you will know who I mean by the painter. I don't want to say his name. I'm playing coy right now. They tried to talk to him too, and they couldn't talk to him. There was no talking sense into that man. So that's when they established the Vril Society. VRIL. You can look into it. You know who there's a lot of talk about the Vril Society. That was another galactic opportunity for them to come down here and have conversations. And be like, "Hey, you got to change this. You got to change that. You got to do this. You got to do that." And they were like, "Nuh-uh. You got to go." So they did try to communicate. They actually even tried to stop World War II from happening, but that didn't work. So that's when they went and talked to the Russians, and they've been pretty much talking to the Russians ever since. They're the only ones that will talk to them, I'm pretty sure. The Galactics are like, "Well, nobody else will talk to us." Who is the painter? Little mustache? No? Not ringing any bells? Yeah. That painter. He's not known for his paintings, we'll put it that way. But they tried to talk to him too, and like I said, things didn't go well. I'm trying not to say his name, and I would encourage you guys not to say his name either, because we're not trying to flag the censors. But if you know who I'm talking about, just nod. Never mind. Athena was like, "Never mind, I'll just say it." I'm trying not to get the censors involved. They keep an eye on everything we say on here. There's a lot of politics that happens on this planet that is not what most people think it is. And that is part of the reason why we're in this mess. So this is one of the reasons why they try not to get too involved in war, because they try and stop things from happening, and then it actually ends up making things worse. So they try to stop something. They're like, "Okay, well, let's see if we can stop by talking to this person and giving this person some information." And then the entities get involved and end up thwarting that. And that's what ended up causing all kinds of other stuff to escalate and get worse. So this is why you have so many different groups with different opinions on these things as to why certain groups did what they did. So this is why I say, the more you understand, the more you like, there's so much technology back then. That one specific group who was trying to control the world, another word I'm not saying out loud, but that specific group was so obsessed with the occult and with galactic technology. Why do you think that is? There was so much of it that was studied because they thought that they were going to have some kind of device or technology that would give them the upper hand. So they were taking all the occult stuff very seriously, all the galactic stuff very seriously. So, and this was happening at a time when our side, like the West, was like, get out of here, you space hippies. They wanted nothing to do with it. And you wonder why all the Stargate program stuff happened and why we have so many different things that were occurring around the 40s and why so many nukes were detonated back then. Oh my God, you guys, it's all connected. Every single bit of it is. So the ironic thing about this, and the point that I really want to drive home as I end our conversation, is that the prime directive is bullshit. Okay? Because the prime directive says that that galactics should not influence less developed races because they would be getting in the way of their development. They wouldn't be developing in a natural, linear way. They end up getting influxes of technology that end up being very destructive as well. So this is why they don't want the galactics coming in and messing with the humans so much. But this is how we got started. This is how we were created. We were created as an experiment, as a galactic experiment. And pretty much every single minute that we've existed, we've had galactics interfering. In every instance, they're not just talking about, from a sovereignty perspective, but our entire civilization, every inch of it has galactic influence. So for them to be like, well, galactic this, galactic that, we got to stay away from the humans. Don't go near the humans. Don't give them anything. Don't tell them anything. It's bullshit. This whole time we've been under the influence of galactics, literally from day one. They've been involved with our politics since day one. They've been involved in religion since day one. They're involved in every inch of our society. So for them to be like, oh, we can't have galactics go down and meet with the humans face to face like they did with the politicians 50 years ago. We can't allow that. Look what happened with Billy Meyer. Does anybody know who Billy Meyer is? Billy Meyer is the most documented ET contactee in history, and most people have no idea who Billy Meyer even is. And it just goes to show all of this is swept under the carpet for a reason. Because if they really understood, if they really knew that every inch of our society has been influenced by galactic since day one, since the very minute that we humans were even created, the prime directive would make no sense. So why to this day, it makes no sense to me as to why they say, oh, well, we can't go and influence the humans. You've been doing it every 5 minutes since we got here. And they'll do it in stealth. They'll go and, talk to a world leader, or they'll go and influence a certain group, or I don't know, they'll even go and find somebody like me who they can be used through channeling and that sort of thing, or to doing work through. But we are not allowed to have mass landings. We're not allowed to meet face to face. It bothers me that Eisenhower was allowed to meet my people and I'm not. And the fact that he was rude to them makes me even more pissed off about it. So I'm still kind of, the way that they are right now in the media and claiming how they're enlightening Christians and part of our government about galactics and telling people all about aliens and this sort of thing. It's to scare people. If they really wanted you to know about galactics, they would have a press release tomorrow and they would say, okay, look, full disclosure, we've been keeping everything quiet for 80 years. Full disclosure, we've been having conversations with the galactics for a very long time. We know all the different types because we've been experimenting on them. We know who's here, how they got here. We know where they've been. We know what kind of bases they have. If we were actually able to have that open conversation, one of the first people I would ask about, okay, what happened to Phil Schneider? Anybody know who Phil Schneider is? What happened to Phil? I really want to know. I want to know what happened to Phil. So is the government going to tell us what happened? Because they know. How many people like Phil out there? And if you don't know who Phil Schneider is, look him up. Please do. There are people that have seen things, that have experienced things that the government knows about. There are Green Berets, there are soldiers who have disappeared in those bases. And for them to be like, oh, we're just going to tell the televangelists about this or that. And, you know, we're going full disclosure. We're going to tell everybody about all the galactics. No, you're not. No, you're not. There's no way they want people knowing what happened to Phil. They don't want people knowing what happened to, there's so many whistleblowers. Phil was killed for being a whistleblower, but he nearly was killed for finding and tunneling into an underground gray base near Dulce, New Mexico. He was building bases and underground bunkers and accidentally tunneled into an underground base where Matra Grays were found. And he lost all of his men and nearly died himself. And he got his hand melted. Like literally his hand got melted. Like this is all that was left of his hand. This whole part of his hand got melted by some kind of a laser device. And it melted his foot. In fact, in the speech he gives, they said he crispy crittered his right foot. He got hit with a laser of some kind from the gray technology. And literally he gave a speech about what happened. He was the only survivor of what happened. His entire crew was killed in that base. When they tunneled in, they didn't know it was there. He was digging bunkers in Nevada, or was it New Mexico? That's right, it was New Mexico. Accidentally tunneled into a bunker, smelled the most horrible smell. He said it smelled like the nastiest rancid trash you've ever smelled in your entire life. Sound familiar? He got too close to a Matra Gray base, tunneled in, and all of his men were taken out within minutes. All of them. Phil got loose. Phil survived. He was saved by one of his Green Berets. And Phil got out, decided to give a speech about what had happened. And he was killed by a piano wire in his hotel room a few days later, like a day later. Phil is one of dozens of people that I would like to know about. So if we're talking disclosure, the kind of disclosure they're offering us is not real disclosure. Because if they actually were disclosing, I have a lot of important questions. There's a lot of people that we want to know about, a lot of situations that we want to know about. And they're just going to be like, oh yeah, aliens are up there. No, they know they're down here. They know. They know they're experimenting on people. In fact, I had a client a couple weeks ago who said that in her dream state, she was told by a gray, when she told the gray to fuck off, basically, she told the gray to get out. You know what the gray told her? I have a right to be here. Your government told me I can be here. I have an agreement with your government to be here right now. That's what the gray told her. She put it in the submission form. So sure enough, I read that and I was like, oh, hell no. I go in and I check. She had a dark contract with the gray. I said something to her guides and they said, yeah, he really did say that. The gray told her, I have a right to be here. Your government gave me that right. Do you know how mad I've been about that ever since? So the disclosure they're offering us is absolute horse shit. It's not real disclosure. Because if it was real disclosure, we'd be talking about what that gray had to say and why that gray was so confident and why he had every right to be where he was and doing what he was doing. So anyway, I'm sorry I'm so spicy today. I'm in spicy mode. Finding creepy ass bugs on people makes me spicy. I'm sorry. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, because I know there are wonderful mantis beings that exist. I know there's some wonderful beings that we would take one look at as a human and freak out, even if they are benevolent, because we're so not used to seeing these things. But just to understand, like, this is the importance of discussing these things, because enough is a fucking enough. Enough is enough. I don't care if our government gave you permission. You do not have my permission. My government does not speak for me. Anyway, I'm in perfect mood for going into my Lost Soul rescue today. As you guys can tell, this is something that I am very passionate and very emotional about. And I think that is part of the driving force and why I don't get burned out so much with this work, why I find it so important, and why I live and breathe this work. So I am very excited to see how it's going to evolve, how it's going to expand. And I am very excited about bringing new students in to do this work because we can't handle all this on our own. We do need help. But at the same time, we want you guys to really know what you're getting yourselves into. You really have to understand the level of horror you might see when you're doing some of these clearings. And you need a thick skin for it. You do. You really need a thicker skin to be able to handle what we will find on people because it's fucking infuriating. It makes my blood want to boil sometimes. Sometimes I get so mad during a clearing, I can feel my face getting hot with the sheer attitude of how dare they? Who do they think they are? You know? But like I said, enough is enough. It's not fun when the rabbit's got the gun, as they say, right? So I love you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. I can't believe there's still 200 people hanging out with me when I'm in spicy mode. I appreciate you guys. I'm sorry that I wasn't as high vibrational as I try to be today, but like I said, there's a lot of things grinding my gears right now that I needed to speak up and vent a little bit about. And I hope my galactic friends understand how important they really are. I hope every single one of you, because I know there's a lot of galactics listening to me right now. I just want to say thank you for being here and not for giving up on us. And I know how bad it can seem and how exhausting it can be. And I just wanted to say thank you to every single one of you, not just the star seeds, but those of you who are soul guides, those of you who are keeping us safe. To every gatekeeper listening to this conversation right now, I love you. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for going above and beyond for what you do in order to keep us safe on this planet because it's a fucking zoo. It really is. It's a zoo. And we need all the help we can get. So I love you guys very much. I hope you all have a phenomenal weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all you wonderful mothers. I hope you all have a great time this weekend. Make sure you put your, self-care at the forefront of everything, okay? Lots of self-love and self-care this weekend. And I will see you guys on Monday. Mwah. See you soon. Bye, everyone.